In the heart of the bustling city of Los Angeles, a peaceful protest took an unexpected, tumultuous turn on Tuesday night on the expansive, manicured grounds of the esteemed University of California, Los Angeles. The campus, typically a vibrant hive of scholarly pursuits and the amiable buzz of student conversations, was abruptly and startlingly transformed into a battlefield of political dissent and civil unrest. The epicenter of this escalating tension was a pro-Palestinian encampment, a poignant silent echo of solidarity and a vehement demand for justice. The serene gathering, initially conceived as a peaceful demonstration of support for the Palestinian cause, was not destined to remain serene. The tranquility of the night was abruptly shattered as counter-protesters, some of them brazenly brandishing pro-Israel slogans blazoned across their clothes, invaded the scene. Their objective was unmistakably clear: to dismantle the makeshift barricades that marked the boundary of the encampment, transforming the peaceful campus grounds into a contested battleground. The escalation was swift and drastic, morphing this peaceful protest into an explosive clash. A tangible tension hung heavy in the air, punctuated and amplified by the deafening, passionate roars of the crowd. This fierce storm of pent-up emotion and political disagreement raged on, unyielding, for nearly 5 grueling hours. The smoldering embers of dissent were stoked and fanned into a raging fire by the increasingly belligerent actions of the counter-protesters. Armed with improvised weapons like planks and a menacing assortment of chemical sprays, the counter-protesters launched a brutal offensive against the pro-Palestinian protesters. To add to the pandemonium, the sky was intermittently lit by the jarring explosion of fireworks, detonated by the counter-protesters, in an obvious bid to intimidate their adversaries. Were the beleaguered pro-Palestinian protesters, who were primarily on the defensive, making frantic, desperate attempts to shield themselves and their symbol of protest. The prevailing calm of the night was forcefully supplanted by a tumultuous storm of violence and resistance. As the night enveloped the city in a blanket of darkness, the situation turned increasingly grim. The tranquil university grounds, once a beacon of learning and exchange, were now a chaotic theater of conflict and aggression. Pro-Israel counter-protesters, a blend of diverse individuals sporting pro-Israel slogans and fueled by a fervor that was palpable, instigated the violence. A chilling statement indeed. On that fateful Tuesday night at UCLA, the events that unfolded are worthy of a deeper counter-protesters. A motley crew of individuals with varying backgrounds approached the pro-Palestinian camp with an atmosphere of blatant aggression. Their weaponry, far from rudimentary, included sturdy sticks, potent chemical sprays, and even pyrotechnics. The peaceful pro-Palestinian protesters, assembled with a mission to take became their target. Emboldened by their sheer numbers, the counter-protesters launched an attack, a vicious act that betrayed signs of premeditation. Surprised and unprepared, the pro-Palestinian protesters were forced to defend themselves. In the face of the onslaught, they stood firm, using anything they could source as makeshift shields. Their primary objective was not retaliation, but self-preservation and protection of their comrades. They stood not as aggressors, but as victims, embroiled in a flash of violence. Anticipate. The clash was far from fleeting. It was a protracted struggle that stretched over nearly 5 hours, mirroring the intensity of the hostility. The air was thick with tension and terror as the two sides locked horns, each passing moment escalating the violence. Outnumbered and outgunned, the pro-Palestinian protesters held their ground, exemplifying a remarkable and heart-rending resilience. When the turmoil finally subsided, what was left was a UCLA campus steeped in disarray. The aftershocks of the continued to echo, serving as a grim reminder of a night that had spiraled from a peaceful demonstration into a battleground. The aftermath left an indelible mark on the campus, not only in terms of physical destruction, but also the psychological toll it took. The university community was left to navigate through the repercussions of an event that had jolted it to its core. The counter-protesters, brandishing their pro-Israel slogans, had unmistakably initiated the violence. But the pro-Palestinian, outgunned and outnumbered, had stood their ground, displaying a resilience that was both commendable and heartbreaking. In the end, a peaceful protest was morphed into a war zone, leaving the university community grappling with the aftermath. The scars of the clash were not just physical, but also psychological, as students and staff dealt with nightmares, anxiety, and the trauma resulting from the event that had shaken the very foundation of the university. In the aftermath, the delayed police response and lack of immediate intervention have not just sparked criticism and calls for investigation, but have also triggered a widespread debate on the efficacy and efficiency of the police force. The consequences of the delayed action were severe, with the conflict escalating dramatically before help arrived. The police, who arrived hours after the violence began, were seen standing by passively as chaos reigned. Their nonchalant reaction added fuel to the fire, with their observers branding them as detached from the ongoing conflict. Their conspicuous inaction raised more than just eyebrows. It instigated a storm of questions about their preparedness, their response mechanisms, and their commitment to their duty. The surprising lack of urgency on display was not simply puzzling, it was alarming, triggering a tsunami of criticism that washed over the city, from its quiet suburbs to its bustling center. The echo of their inaction resonated far and wide, reverberating in newsrooms, government offices, and households alike. The slow and inadequate response was perceived as a slap in the face to the safety and security that the police are sworn to uphold. Their perceived incompetence, or worse yet indifference, sparked not just outrage, but also disbelief among those affected, and those who watched the events unfold with growing concern. University officials expressed their shock and disapproval in no uncertain terms. Their statements were fraught with disappointment and concern over the handling of the situation, a sentiment that was echoed vehemently by students and staff alike. Their call for a thorough investigation into the incident was not merely a request, it was a demand for answers, a demand for accountability. Government authorities too have added their voice to this chorus of disapproval. Their stern criticism and demand for a deeper look into the matter have added weight to the growing calls for a rigorous and comprehensive investigation. The incident, they argue, is not just a case of delayed response, but rather is indicative of systemic flaws that need to be addressed urgently and efficiently. Many are questioning not just the reasons behind the delayed police response, but also the decisions taken once the police were on the scene. These questions reach far beyond the incident itself, touching upon the larger, more pervasive issues of policing and accountability. The incident has brought forth a resounding demand for a closer examination of police protocols and practices, with an unignorable emphasis on transparency and accountability. The incident has underlined the urgent necessity for a more responsive and efficient police force, reigniting long-standing debates around police reform and responsibility. The incident, tragic as it was, presents an opportunity for introspection, for systemic could prevent such an incident from recurring. Amid the rubble and the grief, there is more than just pain. There is an underlying resolve to seek answers, to ensure that such a tragedy repeat itself. The demand for transparency and accountability has become a rallying cry, echoing across the campus and beyond, demanding justice and seeking change. In the days that followed, the event has sparked a nationwide debate. The images of violence from UCLA have ignited public discourse, with voices rising from all corners of society. Outrage, sympathy, confusion, and fear have intermingled, giving birth to a complex tapestry of reactions that reverberates across the country. The fact that no arrests were made in connection with the attack has added fuel to this fiery debate. Questions are being asked about the role of the police, their delayed response, and the seeming lack of immediate intervention. Critics argue that this inaction sends a dangerous message, while others call for patience and a thorough investigation. Meanwhile, the wheels of justice are slowly turning. University officials and government authorities have called for investigations into the incident, demanding answers and accountability. The echoes of the violence at UCLA are now being heard in the hushed discussions of boardrooms and the bustling chatter of coffee shops alike. As investigations continue, the nation watches on, waiting for answers.